Fox Sports.
We are Blackboard. We are Sports Out.
It's weather day today at Turner Field. A lot of school kids are out for a beautiful day for baseball, and hopefully they'll see a sunny outcome. The Braves sure could use one. They hope to avoid being swept by their division rivals, the suddenly hot Miami Marlins. Hi again, friends. Joe and Chip, welcome back to the ballpark. The all-too-familiar refrain for the Braves partner on this homestand, early deficits. The Braves have fallen behind this year 76 times. They've come back to win only 19 of those ball games. Can't afford to have that happen against this hot-hitting Marlins club.
It's a familiar refrain every time we're doing the 4 keys to pitching success. Yeah. It's the first inning for these starting pitchers, too, but it goes beyond that. Take a look at some of these numbers. Now, take your time. This season, in the first inning, the run differential, the Braves are minus 25, and innings 1 through 3, minus 24. Let's cut it down now to the All-Star break. Minus 10 and minus 41, which is last in the big leagues. In the recent days, and the Braves have lost 13 out of their last 14 games. I believe that's right. Might be 14 out of 15. First inning, minus 9. But innings 1 through 3, they're minus 29. Both of those ranked last in Major League Baseball. So I think that's the tail of the tape right there for what the Braves have been going through. They're falling behind big time early, and it's just too much to try and catch up.
Some of that a product of a young pitching staff. Certainly that's reflected in what's happened with Williams Perez, who gets the ball today. Mike Foltynewicz disabled. Perez back in the rotation. He allowed 8 runs to the Yankees in his 2-inning stint last time out.
He's better than that.
Yeah.
We know he's better than that. His ERA since he came back from the DL is over 9. He's better than this. We're not sure what's going on with Williams and why he's pitching to the middle of the plate, why he's behind in the count so much. But hopefully today he'll pitch inside more, which is something he hasn't been doing.
Atlanta will see its 3rd consecutive left-hander. Adam Conley goes for the Marlins. And when we come back, Paul Berg will join us on a beautiful day for baseball here in Atlanta.
Price every day.
Well, Braves fans, if you're upset over Johnny Gomes getting traded, I am too. What a great clubhouse leader he was. But there's hope. Nick Swisher, I came in early this morning. He was fired up. The microphone only needed to be a few inches away from his mouth. He was getting going early. And I'm really excited that he is teaching these young guys how to play the game, and it will carry over into next year.
You got to want to be here. You got to come in here regardless of the situation, and everybody knows this isn't the year that everybody planned on having. Not being part of it early in the year, you could see kind of from the outside there was a lot of moves going on, but the thing about it is coming over here and being part of this organization. It might not be what we want right now, but this front office, this coaching staff, these are baseball men. These guys know exactly what they're doing, and that's what gives you the hope for the future.
And I love the way he finished that. The hope for the future starts right now. He is paying attention to detail. Fans, broadcasters, everybody that loves the Braves. It is not the year we'd hoped for, but we have good leaders in that clubhouse carrying over to next year, making sure these young guys are doing it right. Braves, Marlins lineups coming up next.
Presented by AT UVerse, Delta Airlines, and your local Ford dealer.
Beautiful day in Atlanta. The Braves wrap up the homestand with the Miami Marlins and try to avoid a 3-game sweep. The Braves have dropped 7 consecutive games and are only now a half game ahead of the Marlins in 3rd place in the Eastern Division race. D. Gordon leads off their Academy Sports starting 9. Yelich and Prado 2nd and 3rd. Justin Bohr hit a mammoth homer here last night. He's their cleanup man. Ichiro's in right field. Ozuna's in center. Echeverria, Matheson, Conley, Williams, Perez pitching for the Braves. We got to figure out what's wrong with Williams. He's not the same guy since that ankle injury in Pittsburgh.
He's sure not, Chip. And that .987 ERA plus all the good work he had done prior to the disabled list adds up to an ERA of 5.56. So when you're going as good as he was, there has to be something other than just a sore foot that's caused all these problems for him. His 4 keys to pitching success today, what we talked about in our opening comments. First 3 innings have been disastrous for the Braves in recent days. He's got to try to get that under control today, and at least in my opinion, he's got to pitch inside more, something he has not done during this stretch of rough outings over his last 6 starts.
Very different look for the Atlanta lineup today. Freddie Gonzalez resting a couple of his regulars after the night game last night. Adonis Garcia gets his 4th start in left field for Atlanta. Maben and Nick Swisher in right. No Nick Markakis today. Daniel Castro in for Jace Peterson. Andrelton Simmons is back in the lineup at shortstop. Hector Oliveira makes his 2nd big league start. Bethancourt and Perez is the Atlanta battery. Good to have Andrelton back after a sore ankle sidelined him for a few days. And D. Gordon and the Marlins are ready to go in Game 3. And the first pitch is called a strike at 91 miles an hour. And it's 85 degrees and breezy. Wind blowing out toward the Braves bullpen. And a ground ball to second. That's easy. Good way to start. Keep D. Gordon off the bases. There's the ground ball outs that Perez is hoping for. 1 man down.
I felt so bad for Williams Perez when he came out of that game against the Yankees 5 days ago. An inning and 2/3, 5 hits, 3 walks. They all scored. And he just kind of had a blank look on his face in the dugout like, man, what just happened? So hopefully he's able to regroup today and get back to the way he was pitching before that injury.
Christian Yelich is the batter. And he takes strike. Why is Perez able to come back from the minor leagues and pitch? Well, Atlanta placed Mike Foltynewicz on the disabled list with that viral issue. And because Perez is a fellow pitcher, he can come back from his demotion sooner than 10 days. And how do you pronounce the situation for Foltynewicz?
I'll get to that in just a second, Doctor.
Bouncing ball up the middle. Simmons can't get. What's easier to spell, the ailment or Mike's last name?
The ailment.
Okay.
It's costochondritis. Costochondritis, which is a condition that causes chest pain. I know you know this, but it's a condition that causes chest pain due to inflammation of the cartilage and bones in the chest wall. So basically, when he was breathing, it was hurting. Costochondritis. And our thanks to Dr. Laser Baker on that.
The Marcus Welby of statisticians. 1 on 1 out from Team Prado. And he takes strike. Rob Drake's the home plate umpire, by the way, the native of Indiana, Pennsylvania. That's near Pittsburgh. Birthplace of Jimmy Stewart. And town that bills itself as the Christmas tree capital of the world. Fly ball to center, and that should be handled easily, and is. Maven's got it. Prado flies out. Yelich to first, 2 out. I think the Marlins found themselves a slugging guy to hit behind Giancarlo Stanton.
No kidding.
Last 4 games for Bohr, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 6 hits, and a couple of home runs against the Nationals. And he launched one here last night, and it was, as I said, a missile.
If I'm Freddie Freeman at first, I'm really wanting to play behind Yelich. Good changeup. But right away, Bethancourt giving him a sign like, get it down. Bohr is 6'4", 250.
Little tapper. Perez ought to handle that cleanly, and a good start for Williams Perez. He gives up a hit, nothing else. Marlins are done in the first. Here comes Atlanta to face Adam Conley next. trouble for him against the Marlins in the first inning. Let's hope Adam Conley runs into some trouble against the new look Braves lineup today, featuring Cameron Maybin leading off the Academy Sports starting nine. We'll see if Hector Olivera in his second big league game can get his first big league hit. And the Braves are facing a man, Joe, that they have seen before, but in relief for the Marlins.
3 innings of work on August 6th. And the Braves, in his third inning of work, hit him for a walk, a triple, and a home run. Both of the guys that hit the triple and home are in the lineup today, Castro and Garcia. Low 90s fastball, kind of a slingshot left-hander, slider and a changeup. Second-round pick out of Washington State in 2011.
He was an all-star for the Marlins AAA affiliate in. Still in New Orleans this year?
Yes.
Yeah, in New Orleans. 9-3, a 2.52 ERA at the AAA level. And trying to make an impression for a pitching-starved Marlins franchise. Out of play foul. It's a strike to Maybin. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
You saw there on that graph. More changeups than sliders. His breaking ball is still a work in progress, and that's why he's having some trouble with left-handers. Lefties hitting him at almost a 350 clip.
That was a disappearing slider, and Maybin swung over the top of it. Maybin no hits in his last 19 at bats now, and Conley has his first strikeout of the day.
Well, what would be nice, as we've been talking about these first 3 innings, would be for the Braves offense to break out early and give Williams Perez some room to breathe. And that hasn't been coming easily either for Atlanta.
Braves have scored 1 run in their last 20 innings. Here's Simmons, and that one to the backstop. Andrelton's had his share of missed time this year with the swollen ankle, the sore right thumb. And he looks outside at ball 2. Braves are seeing their 3rd consecutive left-handed starter. Braves are 10-16 this year against lefty starters. And that one caught a corner. 2 balls and a strike.
Good breaking balls to the right-handers. Very, very simple mechanics.
How about that catch?
It was a good one.
On the top rail of the Marlins dugout. Check that out.
Well done.
Two balls, 2 strikes. Strike 3 over the outside corner. Conley's begun the game in impressive fashion. And it's a lefty-lefty matchup now for Freddie Freeman, and here are the lefty-righty splits for the Braves against the opponents.
Now that pitch at 93, that's kind of off of his range. Braves against lefties on the year, 238, pretty low in Major League in terms of average. Right-handers in the middle of the pack. But until this series, Atlanta just hadn't seen that many, especially in a grouping like this.
And does that surprise you in that the bulk of Atlanta's offense has come from Markakis, who hits lefty, Freeman, who hits lefty and has missed time, and A.J. Brzezinski, who hits lefty?
No.
1 ball, 1 strike for Freddie Freeman. Slowly but surely getting his timing back. He's hitting .267 since coming back from his oblique problem. Broken bat popped up. Can anybody catch it? The answer is yes. Fine running catch by Christian Yelich. He's a Gold Glover, and Conley retires the side in order in the first. On a beautiful day here in Atlanta, and fans, it's time for you now to tweet your strongest fan photo. Use hashtag SouthDataStrongFan, and you just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast. That's brought to you by our friends at T-Mobile. Weather day today. Kids get to play partial hooky from school today.
Great presentation from Glenn Burns and the WSB weather crew. Come out, give the kids a real good demonstration about weather and clouds, and it's a great day. And then they get to stay and watch a ball game.
Marcell Ozuna leads off the second. Yeah, the best part's when the kids are all sitting attentively behind the dugout and they turn on the big hose that they use to water down the infield, just spray them down and say, "This is rain." They should haven't experienced that in a while. And a strike. Some back and forth for the Marlins on their lineup card today with Ozuna and Ichiro. Ozuna was going to play center, then he was going to play right, and then they made up their mind, and Ozuna's playing center in Game 3. And there's a reason for that indecision for the Marlins, and it has nothing to do with Ichiro and has little to do with Marcell Ozuna.
It sounds like we're headed upstairs. But it doesn't have anything to do with the players. And
well, it has to do with the man that's rehabbing in Jupiter. And that's Giancarlo Stanton. He had 3 plate appearances last night, took himself out of the game after 3 times up in his first rehab game. Initial reports are the wrist doesn't quite feel as comfortable as he would like. And so it's uncertain as to whether or not Giancarlo Stanton will be back in the lineup Friday when the Marlins are back home. And if Stanton can't play, then they may play Ozuna out there in right field the rest of the season to find out whether he projects better as a center fielder or as a corner outfielder. Three balls, 2 strikes. Perez wanted that pitch, didn't get it.
Yeah, Rob Drake stood up like he was going to call it a strike and then didn't. Like the same pitch called a strike on Simmons.
And that one missed. Second base runner of the game for the Fish. First walk for Perez. Williams might have had him struck out. 1 on, nobody out for Ichiro.
This is 2 pitches ago. Fastball coming back. Good job by Bethancourt to frame it. And this was ball 4. Oh, mercy.
Ichiro pops it up and out of play. So the man from the Christmas tree capital of the world may have just given a gift to Marcell Ozuna with a free pass. That'll bring up Ichiro. Ichiro has been the beneficiary of the injury to Giancarlo Stanton. He's got a lot of playing time, perhaps more than he figured he'd get. Today he makes his 75th start. He has 70 hits in those 75 starts. And he's 75 hits away from 3,000 in the major leagues. Bethancourt held that, and Drake said it was outside. 2 balls and a strike.
If he's missing, it's microscopic.
Line drive to center. Ichiro is out number 1.
I mean, if he's not going to give him one side, okay, and Bethancourt's talking to him about it now. But don't take the other side away from him, too.
A nice job by Bethancourt to make his point. Saw Drake nodding his head. We'll see if Christian's pleas are heard as Echeverria digs in, the talented Marlins shortstop. They love his glove, and they're really excited about how his bat has come along. He was really, in the early days with the Marlins, all glove and very little hit. Hit 227 2 years ago, 276 last year, 279 this year, with career homers, career highs in homers and RBIs now.
Well, that wasn't a very good idea. Trying to bunt with a guy hitting a $114 behind you, and then the pitcher.
He's taking a long look down at the Marlins third base coach. One ball, one strike. There's another bunt try. It's popped up. Ball dropped and kicked out to the mound. Bethancourt can't pick it up, and everybody's safe.
Did they knock it away from each other?
I think so. That'll be a bunt hit. Ozuna belly flops into second base, and a World Cup soccer game broke out on this play.
Dropped between them, and then Bethancourt shin guarded it out towards second. And Echeverria is going to need some attention at first. When Ozuna slid at second base, he belly flopped, but then he just stuck. You know, they just got through watering the infield. He didn't slide hardly at all.
He's pointing at his left leg.
Boom. Boy, his head went straight down, too. This is not just a cramp, I don't think. Taking him out.
He's not going to stay in the game. So Echeverria has injured himself in the second inning. He'll have to come out. And here's another look. Oh.
Yeah, that's hamstring looking
So it'll be Miguel Rojas for Echeverria in the second inning. No pinch run. And the catcher Jeff Mathis is coming up.
Now, the Braves called up 4 or 5 guys.
Right.
The Marlins didn't call up anybody. Maybe trying to avoid the expense of calling up players for the last month of the season. They called up, I think, a backup catcher, a third catcher, Talise. And I was reading or learning last night that the Oakland A's, what are they? They're in the last place in the West, out the American League West, right? They called up like almost 10 guys. And they're not going anywhere. And there's an expense for the Oakland A's in that regard as a small market team. And it just kind of conflicting approaches by these two different organizations. Those two organizations.
Sharply hit and down the third base line. That's base hit. Ozuna's going to gallop home and score. Rojas around third will be held up. And the throw back to third is in time. Rojas wandered too far off the third base bag and is gunned out. Mathis, though, with a double, brings home the game's first run, and the Marlins have scored early, and they cash in the leadoff walk.
And Jeff Mathis on the year 8 for 70. Of his 8 hits on the year, 1 was a double prior to this swing. And he hit that one like he's hitting 350. So the bunt by Echeverria does pay dividends. Rojas rounds it back too far, and Ben May says they got him. Are they going to appeal or not?
Dan Jennings is out on the warning track waiting for the high sign from his video replay group.
Boy, they're a lot slower than Horacio, aren't they?
Yep.
It's like they may have an argument.
And
Rob Drake wants them to decide.
And they have. They're not going to challenge.
Good.
So heads up play by the Braves. Simmons and Oliveira after the relay throw from Adonis Garcia. And now Adam Conley will bat with a lead. And a runner at second base and 2 outs. He's got a couple of hits this year. And the questionable leadoff walk comes back to cause Perez some trouble.
Yeah, that could easily and should have been called strike 3 on one of those 2 pitches. And it turns out to be a run against Williams.
Isn't that something else we've seen too? If something is called that doesn't go the Braves' way, there's a big problem. Base hit up the middle by the pitcher. Here comes Mathis around third. Maben loads up. His throw toward the plate is unable to be cut off, but no further advance. Back-to-back hits for Adam Conley, his 3rd hit of the year, and he now leads 2-0. And this is what I was talking about. The roof seems to fall in very quickly if there's a moment's worth of adversity.
Down the middle. Last night, I mean, we're talking about 2 premier pitchers in the National League, in all of Major League Baseball, Zach Greinke and Madison Bumgarner. Neither one's given up a hit to the pitcher this year. Pitchers are like 0 for 50 against those 2 guys. Granted, Williams Perez is not in that category of pitcher, but last 2 nights, pitchers have had a pretty good night for the Marlins.
Now you've got to face D. Gordon as the pitches pile up. And again, with all due respect to Jeff Mathis, he's hitting 8th for a reason. And Conley the pitcher, but those 2 men have RBI hits. 3 hits in the inning, 2 runs across as D. Gordon chops one in front of the mound. Perez has to hurry, and Gordon is retired, and so is Miami. A leadoff walk leads to a 2-run inning, and a hit by the pitcher hurt 2. It's 2-0 Fish.
A lot of rookies getting called up, especially pitchers. We're going to show you a graphic right here where you see got a lot of appearances there, and first in appearances, innings pitched, second with 416. That's incredible. Wins, second in wins, but you'd like that ERA to be lower. It's sitting at a 5.30. What I have learned by this is there's a lot of guys learning on the job. Maybe they should be in AAA, but they're up here and they're afforded the opportunity. And now it comes down to who can make the adjustments the quickest. Being a pitcher that did well in the first year but then struggled a little bit, I personally had to learn what to do. You've heard the term, this is a game of adjustments. A lot of these young pitchers making adjustments, and it's a hurry to who can really learn the quickest.
And I think September is going to be very important in that regard, Paul. And Joe, I'd love to get your two perspectives on what kind of progress you would like to see from these young starters in rotation for Atlanta. Wins are going to be tough to come by the way the ball club's constructed right now. We know that. But what are some of the tangible and intangible things that a front office might look for? And what do you, Joe, as a hitter, look for in terms of improvement start to start in September from guys like Williams Perez?
I don't know if I can put it in perspective as a hitter, but I think just watching them go, and I don't know if Paul would agree with this or not, but if they're able to pitch 5 or 6 innings every time out, I would say that means they're doing some good things early in the ball game. They're establishing inside with their fastball and learning how to pitch to both sides of the plate. When you're not getting out of the 5th inning, that doesn't show me anything. It doesn't tell me that you're taking that step. But if you're pitching deeper into the ball games, it does, because you're able to pitch out of jams, pitch out of trouble. Those are the adjustments, I think, one of the adjustments Paul's referring to. Would you agree, Bertie?
I would, and you know what, I agree with you, Chip. You don't have to throw a 9-inning shutout. I had a great conversation with Nick Swisher before the game. He was going around making sure everybody's still in the fight, and he talked about Matt Whistler, and he said Matt came over to him and asked him about certain adjustments and what he thought and things like that, and Swisher put his arm around him and he said, when you gave up 3 home runs earlier, I want to see a bulldog battle back. Those are the kind of guys that we want to play behind. It's not the first time it's happened to anybody. It's not going to be the last. And I want to see your attitude. You control the game and you go right at people. I immediately thought of Shelby Miller, who's not getting run support, doesn't have the wins. But when he takes that ball every 5th day, he comes right at you and leaves his previous starts behind him.
Yeah, you feel like you have a chance to win every time Shelby takes the mound. You have a chance to win. That's at times not been there for the rest of the men in rotation for the Braves. I thought Matt Whistler's last start, Joe, was very encouraging against the Yankees. I mean, that was one of those steps forward we've been looking for, because he'd been struggling after the All-Star break. Swisher takes high after the leadoff walk to Adonis Garcia.
There's some other things too, Paul, that I think we've both been around players who were just happy to be here, that didn't feel like there was an urgency. It's like, okay, I've made it and I'm pitching in the big leagues, and they don't really have any other options, nobody else to call up, so I'm okay. You know, do you sense any of that, Paul?
I don't sense a lot of that. I sense at times a little frustration where guys have felt snake bit or overwhelmed, or the locker room is down. The thing I look for is what you just said, which is guys that are happy to be here. They're not working hard. Again, talking to some of these veterans, they're frustrated. You want to win every day. Looks like you're not going to make the playoffs mathematically, but that doesn't mean that you don't bring your A game like you do in early April every day and compete. And I don't know about you, Joe, but I mean, when I played wiffle ball in the neighborhood when I was 10 years old, I wanted to win.
Sure.
And so when you see guys, and again, you want to make sure that, as you say, guys are not comfortable, happy to be here. You want to make sure guys want to win, and they're taking it one game at a time and bringing everything they got.
Here's what I meant by that, and I don't mean to imply at all that nobody's working as hard as they should be. I'm sure they are. But like with Whistler's 3 home runs that he gave up, the look on a guy's face tells me a lot. Yes. When he's getting beat down and he's not getting any results, and there's no sign that, hey, And I'm not talking about going head hunting, and I know this is old school, but move a guy off the plate. Make a guy move his feet. Yes. Let him know you're not happy, and that's something that could certainly be improved upon.
I agree with you 100%. That is something I feel that would help a lot of guys out, commanding that inside part of the plate. Getting back to Swisher, I thought this was very impressive. He went over to Oliveira, who's standing in front of me on the on-deck circle. And he just said, hey, it doesn't matter what you signed for. It doesn't matter what you did in Cuba. You have to earn the respect of everybody here, and people are watching you, and it will come with how hard you work and how much you want to win. And I thought that was very impressive.
It was. It is. Nick's cut from the same cloth as Johnny Gomes and A.J. Pierzynski and Nick Markakis, and that's about winning. And what do I have to do to help this team win? How hard, how much harder do I have to work? Where do you want me?
3 balls, 2 strikes.
He's been through the wars.
And that's popped up down the right field line. Ichiro will give chase, and will run out of real estate.
It's real easy, Paul. I don't presume that you've been on teams that have gone through stretches like this, but it's real easy to show up and lose. It's real easy just to come out, throw your glove out there, and roll over. It's hard to win, and I'm sure that's part of what Nick was trying to do, was to stir up the clubhouse and let everybody know, hey, we got work to do today, and it's about winning.
Absolutely, and I have gone through that, Joe, actually in '99 with the Phillies, challenging the Braves in August, even stepping into first place for a game, and then
line to center. That's going to get down. Ozuna tried to make a deke.
Great at bat.
And Nick Swisher has the first Atlanta hit, and Hector Oliveira has an RBI chance. 2 on, nobody out. Go ahead, Paul.
And it was very frustrating because, imagine being in first place, thinking you're going to make the playoffs, then losing 19 of 21 or 22, which we did. We had some injuries, but we also struggled, and it started to snowball. There was a heaviness. You didn't look forward to coming to the locker room when you were driving to the field, and it just, again, snowballed. And I think that's when you're physically worn down, and you have to make sure you get in the weight room, go over the scouting report like you do again in April, bring that energy level back up, and just take one game at a time and play the game, I'll say, the right way.
2 on, nobody out for Hector Oliveira. And Mathis, a nice stop. 1 ball, no strikes. Well, these are the dog days of September now for the Braves and, frankly, the Marlins. Atlanta at 54 and 78. As Conley looks in for his sign with a 1-0 count. And that's backing out of play to the screen. If you can't get up for the games that we have coming up starting tomorrow night, then you can't get up for them. We're going to Washington. Nationals are fighting for their lives.
This is the Braves postseason.
Exactly right.
It's coming up, and there's going to be series with Washington, with Toronto, with the Mets, and the Cardinals right at the end of the season, where this is your postseason, and you could really wreak havoc with some teams.
1 ball, 1 strike. Lashed down the left field line and out of play. It's 1-2. So I agree with you. That's going to be a growing experience, a learning experience, as Freddie Gonzalez shifts his perch to try to get some offensive luck working for the Braves. Down 2-0. And a swing and a miss. So Oliveira's retired. That's 3 strikeouts for Conley. He's had a very sharp breaking ball early on.
Yeah, it's been on the same pitch. This one was up, however, and Oliveira swung right through it. The other 2 were more tight in on the hands of Maben and Simmons.
So Christian Bethancourt is in the box. 2 on, 1 out now. Bethancourt hitting 190 for the year. And he pops it up. Bohr and Gordon. It'll be D. Gordon looking up into the bright sunshine, makes the play, and Bethancourt swings the first pitch and is the second out.
That strikeout of Simmons, I need to correct myself, was not on that slider. That was the fastball that Rob Drake gave Conley on the call.
So with 2 outs, the 8th place hitter is Castro. Marlins have a base open, so they can pitch carefully here with the pitcher due. Let's see how Miami goes to work. Daniel's done a nice job when he's filled in at second and at shortstop. He's hitting .303 for the year. 9 hits in his 8 starts. Ball 1.
And hit a triple off this guy early August.
After the game, the Braves head to Washington. We open up a series with the Nationals, then the Phillies. The Marlins head back home. They have a long homestand. They too can wreak some havoc. They've got the Mets for 3, Milwaukee for 3, and Washington for 3. That's tipped and caught.
Good change up there. Milwaukee's played better lately. They won their last 2 games, 5 out of 10.
Here's a stat that might surprise you. You know what the Marlins record against the Nationals is this year?
No.
6-6. So they've got a shot to make life tough, very tough for Washington. The only way Washington's going to the postseason is if they win the East. It looks like they're 9 back in the wild card, 6.5 out behind the Mets. Now back, and they lost another game to the Cardinals yesterday in come from behind fashion. Matt Williams getting roasted for his bullpen usage, or lack thereof, some say.
They didn't use Papelbon, right?
Right. He's had his
With the
relievers.
lead.
He's had his relievers in set roles pretty much all year, and he has been very unwilling, it seems, to change those roles. Drew Storen's my 8th inning guy. I'm not going to get him into the game in the 7th. Papelbon's my closer. They never got to Papelbon because Casey Jansen got roasted. Bouncing ball to second, and Gordon will flip to short, and that will retire the side of the shortstop covering the bag, Rojas. And Atlanta had 2 on, nobody out, and can't break through. Pretty day at Turner Field in Atlanta. The Marlins enjoy a 2-0 lead, and we'll be seeing our friends at Delta Airlines, Mac Honey, Corliss, and the gang in just a few short hours as we make our way to Washington, D.C. We thank our friends at Delta for getting us from city to city, town to town all summer long. Just 2 road trips left for the Braves. We head to Washington and Philadelphia for this one. Our final road trip takes us to New York and South Beach to face the Marlins.
Yeah, easy trips. Yeah. And they're only a week long, which is nice this time of year.
Difference in the game so far: the 8th place and 9th place hitters have RBI hits for the Marlins against Williams Perez. Atlanta had 2 on, nobody out in the 2nd and couldn't break through against Conley. So Perez will face Yelich, Prado, and Bohr here in the 3rd inning. And ball 1. I know he's a Marlin, but I sure like watching this kid play. Christian Yelich.
Can do a lot of things to beat you. Long strider, good run, good speed rather, and terrific looking hitter.
Nice swing. Look at that ball jump to center, but maybe it'll catch it. There's the first out. That's why I said last night, you look at the Marlins on paper and they're looking like the Braves ahead to 2016. Assuming Giancarlo Stanton comes back from the wrist problems, you look at their lineup, you look at their young players, you look at the power speed balance, you look at the lefty righty thing. From an offensive standpoint, they have the makings of a really good offensive team.
The components are there. Balance, left side, right side. But they got to have that big bopper in there. He's the difference maker, Stanton.
26 homers for Stanton and 70 some odd games for them. And it's not known if he'll come back this year from the wrist problem. Just 2 at bats, 3 plate appearances at Jupiter in a rehab yesterday, and Stanton took himself out of the ball game. Don't know what that's all about. As Martin Prado rips one out of play. Still a fan favorite here in Atlanta. And a man we hated to see go, not just because of those numbers, but the kind of guy he is.
Big time contributor while he was here.
Popped up. Freddie gives chase over near the tarp, and he can't get there.
And as I said last night, he made himself into a good hitter. He worked hard in the weight room to get stronger, built himself up, and all of a sudden he showed up one spring, started driving the ball, and put that together with his good defense, made him a solid player.
So of those 752 hits that Prado had with the Braves, about 680 of them were rockets between the first baseman and second baseman when he was here.
Hitting behind the runner typically.
Yep. And he shoots that one foul again to the right side. It's still 2 balls, 2 strikes. Full count. And that one is up the middle. Good at bat by Prado to spoil 3 or 4 Perez pitches. And then he whacks a single into center. And that's the 5th Miami hit.
All those balls he was fouling off to the right side, though, Chip, and down the right field line. He's making a concerted effort to stay inside the baseball, and he did there. He's fighting that ball off. He didn't want to give up on anything middle away, like a changeup or a slider, and he got something up and in, and he still had his hands inside the baseball and hit it hard up the middle.
Martin has one more year left on his contract in Miami.
How old is Martin now?
He will be 32 on October 27th. Traded by the Yankees in the Nathan Eovaldi deal that brought David Phelps to South Florida as well. Garrett Jones went to New York too. So in what's been a disappointing year, Bohr has to be one of the highlights. What a find he's turned out to be. They signed Michael Morse to be the man to protect Giancarlo Stanton, and Morse just never really clicked in Miami. He was since dispatched.
You've got to be really strong to do what he does, and that's flip that ball of the bat forward toward the third base batter's box and still get it back up into a position to start your swing. You've got to be ultra strong. And last night, that home run he hit, his timing on all that was unbelievable.
Bohr's held his own defensively for the Fish as well. He's made just 6 errors this year. And the ball's popped up out of play. Another thing that you like about Bohr, 301 at bats now, and he's only struck out 70 times.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising given how early he starts that bat waggle to get everything going. You'd think you'd be able to throw him some off-speed stuff to throw his timing off. That was an off-speed pitch, and he had to lunge to foul it off, but he did get a piece of it.
There's one of those pitches you were talking about.
Yeah.
Don't know if it was by design, but maybe it'll be effective.
Yeah, it might have been an accident here, but we'll find out if he throws him a changeup down and away now. But you've got to do this to left-handed hitters, especially when he relies on his changeup so much. You've got to keep the left-handed hitters honest, and that was a beauty.
So Prado leads and takes off, and out of play foul. It's another 3-2. And you're right, it is something you don't see an awful lot of much anymore. Guys pitching inside for purpose, not to hit people, just to make them aware that they will buzz the tower.
Some guys' command's just not good enough to do it.
That's a good point. Runner goes, 3-2 pitch, back to the mound. Perez will have one play. It's to first, and he makes it for out number 2.
Well, guys, I love what you're talking about, that inside part of the plate. Joe, you made a great point about not backing guys off this season, guys getting too comfortable. I personally think some of this is the game plan guys have used in AAA, which is away. Not having to establish the inside part of the plate doesn't work here. Something I've found is big league hitters at this level can hit the ball away. Most of strikes are on the outside part of the plate, and it's a matter of changing your game plan.
I want to add to that in the next half inning, Paul, so stand by.
Ozuna rolls out. Nothing doing for the Marlins in the third. Williams Perez will lead off down a pair. Week, get terrace reserved seats for just $25 when the Mets are in town Thursday, September 10th through Sunday the 13th. Go to Braves.com/steal before midnight tonight and take advantage of this great offer. Joe, you and Paul had more to talk about that last sequence.
Yeah, I just wanted to pile on to what Paul was talking about, pitching inside. And I only have to go back about 3 games, Paul, to that 7th inning when the Yankees scored 9 runs the other day. And they had no intimidation factor at all about the inside part of the plate. And they just kept stepping up, hitting, stepping up, hitting. Nobody got dusted. And when hitters know that, and they know that in the dugout, boy, it goes to the dugout like wildfire where, hey, they're not going to challenge you, so go for it.
I agree. That's part of the game at times is lost, I believe, pitching inside. It is hard to do. You may hit the guy, but sometimes that's okay. I felt like you need to own the inside part of the plate. It's the hitter's job to get out of the way, and you're exactly right, Joe. You know it more than anybody as a hitter. If somebody's not going to throw inside or establish a strike inside, that hitter will start to either scoot towards the plate, making that pitch away down the middle, or they'll start to dive.
Right.
And neither's good. And so you have to, I'm not saying you have to live inside, but that hitter has to know you will either back them up or you can throw a strike in there for them to respect it. And then you get that ball away on the outside corner.
Well, you assume as a hitter that this guy's in the big leagues because he's got at least 2 good pitches. And one of them is probably a fastball. It may not be 95, but something that he can make move or go to both sides of the plate on. So as a hitter, you got to respect the fact that he might bust you inside, and that gives him the outside part of the plate. And without that, major league hitters will go crazy wearing you out hitting wise.
You're right. And as you said earlier, everybody talks on that bench. And if you can't throw a strike inside, word travels quickly. You know, if I played interleague and I looked on the scoreboard and, you know, I do the scouting report, but I knew that if.
How about that? A walk for Williams Perez.
Very nice. But I knew if a guy was hitting 290 and above, I knew he could hit the fastball away, and I had to pitch him to both sides of the plate. If there was a guy that was hitting 230, 240, I knew one of 2 things. He either could not hit the ball away well or he couldn't hit a breaking ball. And then I approached the scouting report from that perspective and tried to figure out which one it was. And so a lot of times a hitter will tell you, based on their numbers, what kind, in my opinion, what kind of hitter they are.
See, and that's something I would look at. Before a game, I would look at the starter's stats and see if he'd hit anybody. How many hit batsmen does he have compared to the rest of his starting teammates? And if he only had 1, maybe 2, I realized, oh, this guy doesn't pitch inside much. And if he had 4 or 5, which isn't a lot either, but at least I knew this guy's going to make sure that I stay off the plate more than likely because he's got some hit batsmen. That's the first thing I looked at.
Mm-hmm.
1 ball, 1 strike for Cameron Maybin, who represents the tying run, and Conley now having a little trouble with the strike zone. This was also part of his scouting report, guys. He can get through a lineup the first time, but after that seems to have a lot of base runners. Atlanta certainly hopes that's the case. 2 walks and a hit, all he's allowed to this point. And Maybin missed that. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Showed you this earlier, but it's worth repeating that for Conley, things going along okay with nobody on base, but after that he has trouble, and usually it begins with the second time through the order because hitters rule out his breaking ball and changeup and just sit on his fastball.
Bouncing ball. And Rojas can't make the play. Maybin's going to reach. All hands are safe. An infield hit.
And Cameron took a long time to stop down the first base line. Not sure what he did. Maria came out of the game earlier for the Marlins with a strained hamstring.
So that snaps an 0 for 19 for Maben.
Oh, that slip didn't help.
So much of his game is predicated on the legs. And
Terry Pendleton just called timeout. Says he's okay.
Andrelton Simmons in the box. 2 on, nobody out. Same situation for Atlanta in the third that they faced in the second. Couldn't score. Let's see if the heart of the order can do some damage. First pitch swing rolled out toward Gordon. Tag, throw, double play. Maben thought that Gordon missed him on the way by. That's a double play. We'll see if the Braves make an appeal.
You have the right to avoid a tag in the old terms of, oh, he ran out of the baseline. You have the right to get out of the baseline to avoid a tag if he's standing right in the baseline like D. Gordon appeared to be doing. So did he tag him or not? Look there. See how D was reaching back to try to get him again? I would say he missed him. And he did. Otherwise, he wouldn't have snapped his glove back to try to get him again. Pretty fancy footwork by Cameron.
You bet. And that's a huge call if the Braves get this call overturned, and they will appeal it or challenge it, if you will. And Maben should be ruled safe. Call should be overturned, and Atlanta should have runners at second and third with 1 out.
Joe West, the crew chief. There he's hustling. Okay. Wasn't sure if he was going to make it. This angle, it's hard to tell if he got him on the shirt or not. But see, he reached back right there in an extra effort and then looked at the umpire. This one, it's obvious he did not.
Even Maben's laughing at his fancy footwork. And D. Gordon's laughing along with him. Tried to fool everybody in the ballpark, but Maben would have none of that. But you never know. We had a replay earlier in this series that we thought was obviously going to be overturned, and it wasn't. So we'll wait for the verdict.
Indeed we did.
This one shouldn't take long. And he is safe. So Simmons is out on a 4-3 put out. Runners are at second and third for Freeman, and only 1 man out.
Time to get those runs back. Andrelton swung at the first pitch. Let's see if Freddie, who's prone to do that, let's see if he goes after the first pitch.
They thought he might and pitched him away. 1 ball, no strikes.
Again, lefties hitting him at a .348 clip coming in. That slider missed again. Sit on that fastball.
Two balls, no strikes. Haven't given him much to hit.
I don't think they will now. Take their chances with the right-handed hitter Garcia.
So Freeman walks, 3rd walk of the game, 2nd of the inning for Conley. Garcia hits with the bases loaded. And Adonis is our Georgia Lottery hitting the jackpot feature.
Good numbers against lefties, including a home run off Conley. First time he saw him. And Adonis, while he didn't play last night, he's 10 for 30 on this homestand, coming in with 3 home runs. Walked his first time up today.
This is the third time he's been up with the bases loaded this year.
And he's after the first pitch. How's he done?
0 for 2. It all began with a walk to the pitcher, Williams Perez. Fly ball towards center. Ozuna's got it. There's the catch. Perez is going to try to come home. Here's the throw to the plate, and Mathis couldn't get the tag down in time. Strong throw by Marcell Ozuna. Mathis caught it. The tag late, and Perez has scored on a sacrifice fly.
Good for him. Good hard slide by Williams. Went right between the wickets. Ozuna has a terrific arm. And let this one fly. One hopper. Mathis had to go up kind of high on the hop and then bring the glove down, but too late. Gave him a place to slide. Good call. Boy, Rob Drake right in there, sticking his nose right in there on that call.
That's a good old-fashioned near collision at the plate.
Yeah.
And Perez got the best of it. He scores the first run of the day for the Braves on a sacrifice fly, and now it's 2-1 score for Nick Swisher. Nick earned a hard-fought single in the second inning for the Braves. Trying to bring home Maben with 2 outs.
Was that pitch that much better than the one to Ozuna earlier that drew a leadoff walk? No.
No balls and a strike. And Swisher got hit on the arm guard. Finally tried to pitch inside, as you said. Didn't have command of the pitch, and they're loaded again.
Arm guards on the elbow and the bicep have really done good work for hitters. At this day and age, it's not too often you need them.
Oliveira had 2 on, nobody out, struck out his first time up. He's got 3 on with 2 outs. Looking for his first major league hit.
Right now, he's not getting much over for a strike except his fastball. That was a changeup, and that missed.
High hopper. That's through. A base hit. 1-run scores. Here comes Freddie. Yelich's throw to the plate is going to be late. First big league hit for Hector Oliveira. Drives in 2 runs.
He threaded the needle on this one. A pitch away from him, rolled over the top of it, had enough topspin on it. To get by Prado, but then to get through the infield. Yelich comes up throwing. Look at Mathis. He's camped out on the plate this time. But the ball got there too late, and Big Freddie slid right through his foot. Short throw for Yelich, too.
So the Braves have come back to take a 3-2 lead, a milestone for Hector Olivera.
Yeah, put it on the scoreboard if you would, folks. That'd be nice to see up there, a 3-2 lead.
Right now they only have given the Braves credit for 2 runs. It's been tough enough to score this year without home field disadvantage on the scoreboard.
Short changes now.
Yeah, come on, fellas. There we go. And Bethancourt is the hitter, the 8th man to bat in the inning.
Congratulations to Olivera, his first major league hit.
One of 58 different players to wear the uniform for Atlanta this year. And in his second game, 2 RBIs. And a long way to go this afternoon. 3-2 Atlanta. Argyle Jenkins, our stat man downstairs, tells us this is the first time the Braves have had a lead in 6 games.
Well, that's too long. I don't know where Freddie was camped out, but go back to the same spot. If it was in the front of the dugout or down at the far end.
Popped up. And Bohr at first will make the play. And that retires the side. Braves have a lead. They score 3 runs. They get 2 walks, a hit batsman, and 2 hits, including the first by that man, Hector Olivera. We go to the 4th, Atlanta's in front. Ichiro's going to lead off for the Marlins in the 4th inning, and he is our AT&T Uverse trivia question. He has a career .315 average, second among active players. Who has the highest active batting average among players with a minimum of 3,000 at bats?
Got to be Cabrera, doesn't it?
Of the Tigers, Miguel Cabrera, the former Marlin. It's a great guess.
3,000 at bats. Highest active, right? That said.
Yeah. Chase Utley's not a .315 hitter, is he?
No.
Lifetime?
No.
What a player Ichiro has been. Star in Japan, and then a cult hero in Seattle.
That young man hit the cotton candy early. His name's got to be Gene, doesn't it?
The dancing machine, you bet. As Ichiro Suzuki goes to work. Incredible numbers with the Mariners. First year in the North American Major Leagues. In 2001, Ichiro hit .350. .242 hits. 2004 hit .372. 262 hits in a single year. Almost all of them singles. That year he had 262 hits, 24 doubles, 5 triples, 8 homers. His on base percentage that year, .414. You know, by the way, he only made 3 errors in the outfield. Fly ball headed for the gap. That's going to get down for a base hit. And Ichiro's on his way to second. He doubles on an 0-2 pitch.
Like an off-speed pitch too, and when he swings like that at an off-speed pitch, it's like almost like he slows his bat down to the pitch speed to make sure that he makes good contact with it. See, that wasn't a big hard swing, just batting practice contact, and he hits the gap.
5th double for Ichiro, who's now 74 hits away from 3,000 in the U.S. So here's Miguel Rojas. He came on after Echeverria left with a hamstring strain. He's looking for RBI number 8. Rojas out of Venezuela. He came with D. Gordon and Dan Herron for the Dodgers for Andrew Heaney, Chris Hatcher, Enrique Hernandez, and Austin Barnes. Heaney was later flipped to the Angels for Howie Kendrick, who has been hurt. Chase Utley was then acquired by the Dodgers from the Phillies. And that's down the right field line and just foul. I mean, just foul. That would have tied the game. And Rojas back to the plate.
That was close. Going back to the trivia question with that batting average, the only one higher than among active players than Ichiro Suzuki, which took me to Detroit, and I did not realize that Detroit had fallen into last place in the Central Division.
Nobody saw that coming, did they?
No.
With the injury to Miguel Cabrera, their fortunes really took a tumble. Victor Martinez hasn't been right for a couple of years. David Price traded away. That's
loss of Scherzer.
Yeah. A couple of big body blows for the Tigers. Dave Dombrowski was asked to leave or left on his own volition. I forget which. Either way, he's now with the Red Sox. And a ground ball to second. Good at bat by Rojas. Got his man to third base with 1 out.
Well done.
I think the story out of Kansas City, we talked about it last night, is worth following. Chickenpox outbreak. A couple of their players are out for 2 weeks with chickenpox. It sounds like a silly thing, but among adults, it's apparently a very serious illness. And if there are players that have not been inoculated or haven't had it as kids, you go out for 2 weeks this time of year and then have to fight back with the playoffs right around the corner. That's terrible timing.
Well, he's getting nothing. Williams Perez is getting nothing at the plate on either side.
Infield in. Mathis didn't get that even count. And that court might have been crossed up.
Can't afford that here. Not with a tying run at third.
Fly ball center, and Mathis is going to tie the game with a sacrifice fly. There's the catch. Ichiro tags, and he will score standing up. It's a 3-3 game. ABC baseball executed nicely by the Marlins.
Mathis got something up. And what a day he's having. He's having his best day all year long.
Yeah, he had 4 RBIs all year coming in. He's got 2 today. And he's the 8th place hitter.
It looked like a breaking ball. It didn't do anything. High hanger.
Adam Conley's gotten in on the fun. He has an RBI hit, and that's taken low. 1 ball, no strike. So we'll have to start over. 3-3 game now. We're in the 4th.
None of that would have mattered if Rojas hadn't gotten Suzuki over to third base.
Bouncing ball. Freeman's got it. He'll flip to Williams Perez, and that's the inning. A leadoff double, a ground out to second, and a sacrifice fly has us tied up. For just $25 when the Mets are in town Thursday, September 10th through Sunday the 13th. Go to Braves.com/steal before midnight tonight and take advantage of this great offer. That, young fans, is what is called a skateboard. They actually used to have skateboards without electrical motors on them. Bet you didn't know that. Check it out. You have to actually use your feet to propel you forward or backward, for that matter.
Nice circumstance a minute ago with Ichiro Suzuki at third base. Oliveira just got his first big league hit, and Ichiro, in his best Spanish, was saying, "Nice going." Yeah.
Yeah, you're only 2,975 behind me.
Yeah.
Now, Ichiro does speak English, we understand. He just chooses not to when the media is around so that he's in no way misunderstood. He does have an interpreter that works with the Marlins and travels with him. But from what we've been told, he's been a great teammate down in Miami, and he's really taken Marcell Ozuna under his wing. In fact, we are told that he's teaching Marcell Ozuna a new Japanese word every day. I'll leave it to your imagination which ones he's teaching him.
Argyle just told me that Ichiro had 660, is that right? 662 major league hits before he turned 30.
Wow. What a player. As Daniel Castro goes to work. He's the Atlanta 8th place hitter, and Ichiro on cue will glide toward the line and make the catch. And there's out number 1. Apparently Ozuna's doing some teaching too.
Yeah, Brett Butler's. Oh yeah, Brett does have a little something working.
I thought that was the chicken dance. Ooh. That was a little rough.
Oh, way to go, Brett.
So 1 out for Williams Perez, who walked and scored the first Atlanta run. He was handed a brief 3-2 lead, but Miami has tied things up. And a strike. Question for the Marlins going into the offseason is pitching. Pitching and then pitching. Really was their question coming into this season. That was thought to be their Achilles heel. Could they hang on until Jose Fernandez came back, and would they be able to stay relevant until Fernandez came back? They dug themselves such a deep hole it was never found out. They lost Henderson Alvarez to shoulder surgery. Matt Latos was a disaster in a Marlins uniform. Ground ball toward short. And scooped cleanly, and there's out number 2. Talking with some of their folks before the game, they would love to see a number 2 type starter on this Marlins roster. They think they've got the 3s, the 4s, the 5s in pretty good shape. I thought the kid last night, Nicolino, was really impressive. Tom Kohler, Fernandez would be 3. Get a number 2 and then see what else you can find either within your system or via trade or free agency. And maybe some bullpen pieces too.
Yeah, and they've got Kozar too, who's been hurt, trying to get him healthy.
Fortunately, it's not his arm, but his ear. Vertigo. And he pitched yesterday and had mixed results.
Yeah, he kept throwing the ball to third base, and there was no umpire or hitter there.
That's not a good way to get strike 1.
No.
Line out of play, foul. And it's quickly 0-2 to Maben. I think that guy got a baseball, might have lost his beverage. I think I saw a big splash when the baseball headed his way. Upstairs, 1 ball, 2 strikes. And Cameron is down on strikes. Nice rebound inning for Adam Conley after a rough third. He gets the Braves in order in the 4th, and the top of his order is coming up.
place every day.
Back at Turner Field, it is a tie game, 3-3 through 4 innings. Weather day. Kids enjoying a balmy early September afternoon. Get to watch a game, eat some hot dogs, cotton candy, and no teachers to worry about.
Miss school.
Yeah, exactly. Remember the old days during the playoff times, World Series times, they'd actually put the TVs and radios in the schoolrooms and let you listen to the games and watch games?
You know why? They were day games.
Good point.
Kids got to watch the World Series. They didn't have to go to bed when the game started.
Usually I got to watch those day games on Saturday for detention.
Well, that's your fault.
Yeah. Yep.
I would run down the hill at lunchtime in high school, junior high and high school, to Hub and Lil's drive-in. And Hub would be in the back of the drive-in grilling burgers for everybody, and I'd go in the back door and he had a little black and white, 12-inch TV back there, just sweating himself to death. And he would make a burger for me and let me sit there in the back in the kitchen with him and watch the game till I had to go back to school at the end of lunch hour and watch the World Series. That was a big deal to me.
Used to be for a lot of kids, as the 0-2 pitch comes to Gordon, and that's fouled away. How many lives in Pittsburgh were changed when Bill Mazeroski hit the home run off over the wall at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh on a beautiful afternoon? No balls, 2 strikes. And Gordon fouls it away. It's still 0-2.
The Braves have done a really nice job in this series on Gordon. He's just 2 for 12. But last night he got both of his hits and reached on a fielder's choice, scored a run, and stole 2 bases. That's the kind of havoc he can wreak when he does reach. And coming into this series this year against the Braves, the damage was in RBIs. He had driven in 11 runs against the Braves to go with a .321 average.
Well, for a sport that's looking to reclaim its glory as far as the speed game and putting the ball in play is concerned, as Gordon does right there, he's Exhibit A. He can do all those things. And now you've got to worry about Gordon trying to steal his 48th base as he has a leadoff hit in a tie game.
Here's something that might surprise you. See where the location of that pitch was? That was in on him. Got his hands in and pulled it sharply. He's not going to hit a ton of homers. We know that. But he's still strong. And he's strong enough to get his hands inside that pitch and get the barrel to it. There's still strength associated with that type of swing.
Yeah, don't be fooled by the slender frame and the wiry body.
Exactly.
Now it sets up for Yelich. And this is why I think the Marlins are so dangerous when they're ready to rumble. If you have Prado hitting second or Yelich here, you figure he's going to see a lot of fastballs because you're worried about the speed of Gordon. If he gets to second, you got to pitch carefully to him, and then you've got to go through Prado or Stanton or Bohr or whatever combination you want. There's a fastball that was overthrown high. 1 ball, no strikes. And it's very odd in this day of Major League Baseball for a team to have nearly as many stolen bases as homers, but that's the case for the Marlins. Miami entered play today with 97 steals, 98 long balls. And Gordon has 47 of their swipes alone. Foul back, even count.
I've been talking since we've been talking about Prado being in town, and now I think he's arguably the best 2-hole hitter in the National League. There are some merits to having Yelich bat second too. Harder for a catcher to see the runner at first, harder to throw to second when you got a left-handed batter up there, and Yelich certainly capable of pulling the ball through that hole.
We've talked a lot about balance, the left-right balance. Gordon's a lefty. Prado's a righty. Yelich a lefty. Stanton would be a righty. Bohr, if you want to hit him behind Stanton, another lefty. That causes a manager some headaches in the other dugout late in the game. But today it's two lefties at the top. And Gordon chased back to first. 1 ball, 1 strike. As good as D. Gordon is in the stolen base department, he's still second to Billy Hamilton of the Reds. Hamilton has 54 swipes. There's a good pitch.
Change up.
One of his best of the day.
Yeah, one of his best in a couple of weeks. He got ahead of D. Gordon before giving up the hit. Now he's ahead of Yelich. One of the things as a hitter here, if you're Yelich, is that you've got to figure they don't want to pitch you in for fear of pulling the ball in that hole. And they want to kind of pitch away in case Gordon runs. And set up away.
Christian sets up. 1-2 count. Look, I love home runs. I love watching guys hit the ball out of the ballpark. I love to see it. But this, to me, is the essence of baseball. Pitcher batter, pitcher base runner, catcher base runner, and how the hitter tries to move him along. I think this is what makes the game great.
Bigger lead.
Going 2 balls, 2 strikes.
But these are some of the thoughts that go through your mind, or should go through your mind as a hitter, especially if you were behind in the count and want to make sure you cover the outside part. Well, it's logical that they want to pitch you away in this situation as a lefty.
And Yelich golfs one into right field. Gordon will make the turn. He's around second on his way to third. And the Marlins have him at the corners with nobody out. Back-to-back hits. And now Martin Prado's coming up.
I don't think Bethancourt was set. Yeah, he was set up away. The pitch had the middle of the plate and down. So he was able to get something down and yank it. Good hitter. Good looking young hitter.
Hitting .315 since May 23rd. Remember, he was well below 200 before then. He's coming on very strong. In fact, Brett Butler told us when the Marlins were here last, he thinks by the end of the year Yelich could get to 300. If he does that, that would be remarkable from the depths from which he began this torrid offensive streak.
We're just looking at him standing next to Freddie Freeman when they're both standing straight up. He's every bit as tall as Freddie, just more slender.
Don't lose sight of Yelich either. He's got 14 steals, but again has been playing with a sore knee. Don't know how active he'll be on the base paths here. Prado way behind in the count. No balls, 2 strikes. And that's hit in the air toward right. Swisher back. Can't hang on. It's into and out of his glove. All hands are safe. A run is in. It's 4-3. It's a sac fly and an E9.
Martin will get credit for the RBI. And again, just trying to hit the ball to right field. Had a hole over there with Yelich at first base. Some more professional hitting from Prado.
That brings Roger McDowell to the center of the diamond for a chat with Williams Perez. Most of all the other baseball is later tonight. We will make our way to Washington. We'll have a chance to watch the Nationals and Cardinals who play tonight in St. Louis. Reds will be in Chicago to play the Cubs. That's a 2:20 Eastern Time start. Angels and Oakland get started at 3:35 Eastern time. Yankees in Boston at 4:05. Yankees have to be a little concerned. Sounds like Mark Teixeira is going to miss at least a couple more weeks for New York. It's a big hole in the middle of their lineup.
That bone bruise is a big deal. I mean, Chris Johnson was out several weeks with that bone bruise from his bad slide. Freddie Freeman was first diagnosed as a bone bruise in his wrist. And for Teixeira, it was from a foul ball off the inside of his knee.
Downstairs. Speaking of Chris Johnson, he's been activated by the Indians. He's back from that infected bug bite or whatever it is.
Right.
And there's another name that was brought back by the Indians that might be of interest to you. Gavin Floyd.
No kidding.
Coming back from the second broken elbow.
Good for him.
You talk about heartbreaking injuries. That one last year in Washington was just awful.
And he was pitching really well.
Yeah.
It looked like he was really on his road back. And he's kind of the forgotten man around here in terms of him being in the rotation last year.
2 balls, no strikes. I may be off on. I think he threw 7 innings, a 2-hit shutout ball, and then threw a pitch and broke the bone right at the tip of his elbow. I think that's the olecranon bone. Is that what that's called? Dr. Dave would know.
Well, all I can help you with is costochondritis today, but I'll get back to you on that.
That might have led to it. I don't know. But he did fracture his elbow and then refractured it, but hasn't given up the dream of pitching again in the big leagues. Fly ball toward left. Garcia near the line, near the wall. Can't get there. And that's out of play. It's 2-2. So I hope Gavin has a terrific September. Hope the elbow holds up, and really hope that he gets another chance somewhere in 2016. Really a good guy.
He told us last night about Jose Constanza, purchased from the Independent League by Tampa Bay. Good for him. Edwin Jackson loosening up.
Ground ball right side. Castro to second for one. The throw to first is in time. A double play. Boers doubled up. Runner at third, Yelich. 2 men out. Williams needed that.
Watch Castro. We had to go a little bit to his left to get this. Stop and take his time, knowing who the base runner was. But he stopped right there, took his time, picked up Anderson, gave him a great feed, and then they had plenty of time to get Babe Boer.
High pop fly out of play by Marcell Ozuna. Ozuna was a 23 homer man for the Marlins last year as their center fielder. Again, think of a lineup every day. Yelich, Ozuna, Stanton. And as Joe mentioned last night, if they move the fences in their home ballpark, how much more power laden will the fish be?
If this guy gets any better at all at putting that breaking ball in play, look out, because he can turn on anybody's fastball.
Fly ball well hit toward left. That ball's got a chance, and that ball is gone. Marcell Ozuna lines one over the fence in left. A 2-run homer with 2 outs on an 0-2 pitch, and the Marlins have doubled up the Braves.
0-2 changeup. Strong man.
First homer of the year against the Braves, his 8th of the season. He scored twice. He's knocked home 2, and Miami with a 3-run 5th leads 6-3. And that one sharply hit. Oh, Castro. Ooh, that ball caught him. Ichiro smoked it. He's retired, and the Marlins are too. They play 3 and take a 3-run lead.
go places. And the Georgia Lottery.
Bottom of the 5th inning here in Atlanta. The Marlins get a big home run from Marcell Ozuna, a 2-run shot, 3 runs across in the top of the inning. They lead now 6-3, trying to sweep the Braves, who have already been swept 9 times in 2015.
And a loss today would knock them out of 3rd place. The Marlins would climb over them.
Andrelton Simmons leads things off, hitting 2nd for the Braves today. And Conley's got to get through this 5th inning with the lead to qualify for his 3rd victory of the year. And some trouble in the 3rd. Braves had him loaded. Picked up 3 runs. And 2 on, nobody out in the 2nd, couldn't score. And this one back to the hill. Easy play. Simmons is an easy out. 1 down. Freddie Freeman walked his last time up, scored ahead of Oliveira's big league first. And he's also popped out to left field. Got the Nets tomorrow night. Braves have announced their starting rotation. Washington has yet to announce theirs. Might be waiting on Steven Strasburg to see if he can go. He was originally scheduled to pitch Friday night. Don't know if that's still going to happen or not.
Oh, you know what? He came out of his last start with, I think, an irritation. I mean, it could be anywhere. But I think it was an irritation of something he had earlier this year, like in his upper back.
Right.
You said right, like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Yeah, I know. But they're hoping it's nothing, that knocks him out for any length of time, because they can't afford to lose him again.
Got their hands full tonight in St. Louis. They've got to beat Michael Wacha. Freeman rolls it foul. Scherzer, the St. Louis native, is pitching for the Nationals. Boy, he is not the same guy since the near perfecto no-hitters and all that stuff. I don't think he's been nearly as effective for the Nationals.
What's his record, like 11 and 11?
I think he's a 500 guy. Yeah. Saw a stat earlier today. The Cardinals have already won 86 games. They could play 14 and 16 ball and still win 100. How about that?
What a season.
Yeah.
With a lot of different people.
Last night it was Brandon Moss who hit the walk-off 3-run homer in the bottom of the 9th inning to hang another curly L on the Nats. 8-5 the final.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
I know that Papelbon was not in the game, and the game was obviously on the line. And he's their closer, as Matt Williams has said and has demonstrated. But in that situation, if the guy you brought in to pitch the bottom of the 9th is in trouble and the game's on the line, don't you worry about the next inning, or don't you worry about tomorrow, and try to win right now, because these games are so precious to the Nationals at this point.
Yeah, there was a great story on that very subject in the Washington Post online either yesterday or today about that subject. The Nationals have to be almost in a sense of desperation now. I mean, they were the team to beat. Everybody knows, as their own players said, they were the team to beat in the National League East. It hasn't happened for them for myriad reasons. As Freeman hits one towards second, Gordon with the backhand makes the play. 2 out. I'm with you. You do whatever you have to do in unconventional ways if that's what it takes to win the game. They had to win that game. They led that game.
Yeah.
They led the first game of the series and let it slip away in the late innings. And that's been a very frustrating thing for many of their fans. And I'm not telling Matt Williams how to manage. I don't think you are either. But he has come under a lot of criticism for the very rigid manner in which he has used his bullpen, very consistently though, all year long.
And managers know their teams a whole lot better than I do, or ever will. They know the ins and outs and who's ready and who's not, who's healthy, who's not. So we're not privy to that. But my point is, if you want to go strictly by the book, then you're going to go in the book as a second place team who had a very disappointing season. You better start thinking outside the box a little bit to try to get your team going.
Couldn't agree more. And as I said, while the Mets are playing the Phillies, a team that they've absolutely dominated, the way the schedule lays down for the Nationals, they've got to go up against the Cardinals, who have the best record in baseball. And when you lead 2 games against the Cardinals late, you got to win them, because it doesn't happen often, especially at Busch. Pop fly foul 0-2. Casey Jansen was the unfortunate pitcher in the first 2 games of that series. He did not have much luck against the Redbirds in St. Louis.
And the Braves head up there tonight.
Yep.
They are 3-9 on the year against Washington and 0-6 at Nationals Park.
Line drive, fair ball by Adonis Garcia, and he's got himself an extra base hit, and he reaches on an 0-2 pitch with 2 outs.
And fought off several tough pitches. Another good at bat, much like Swisher's in the second inning. Freddie had a good at bat this inning, but turned into a ground out. Good battle.
There was another note on the Nationals. They have 6 walk-off losses this year. All of those games came in tie games. Neither of them saw Storen or Papelbon pitch. How big would 6 games be in the standings for the Nationals? Here's Swisher. Runner at second and 2 out.
In Matt Williams' defense, one of the things that he's had to massage has been the end of the game, because he had a very capable closer in Storen, and then when the general manager brought Papelbon on, it was up to Matt to figure out who's going to close. That decision was made either by him or for him with that acquisition of Papelbon, and it really disrupted their team.
Bouncing ball foul. The other thing too, injuries happen. Teams go through horrible spates of luck. The Nationals have had their lineup as they had it on paper for I think 2 games all year long because of Denard Span's injury and Worth and Zimmerman and on and on. How come nobody talks about all the injuries the Mets have had? David Wright's missed almost the entire year. Zach Wheeler's been out the whole year. Bobby Parnell's been out the whole year. One of their key relievers has been suspended twice. It's not an injury, but he's been suspended. Lucas Duda's out with a bad back. Danny Murphy's missed a lot of time. Darno missed a couple of months with a bad wrist.
Good point.
Bouncing ball to Prado. He'll give ground, and he'll toss across to Swisher, and that's in plenty of time. Still some time left for the Nationals. They've got a lot of games head-to-head with New York. We're midway through against the Marlins today. Coming your way Friday, September 18th. All zombies, walkers, and the undead are invited to the ballpark against the Phillies. The ticket package includes a zombie survival kit, access to zombie makeup artists, and a pregame zombie walk around the field. Speaking of zombies, for details, visit Braves.com. 6-3 Marlins. Paul, what's going on down there?
Well, guys, everything's going well, but I'm really excited about watching one of the old guys, Ichiro Suzuki, today. Sprints home on a fly ball to center field, and I know he's not a Braves, but I appreciated his hustle. And then I have to bring out this, and I got to throw this back to you, Joe. One of my former teammates, Raul Ibanez, played with Ichiro. No one knew what he was going to hit when he got to the big leagues. First year out, he hits 350, hits 372 one year. So people started asking him his philosophy on hitting, and they said they had to walk away because it was so confusing. He drifts forward, he breaks all the rules, but the one thing they said that he tries to concentrate on is keeping that front shoulder closed so that when he drifts towards the ball, he gets longer to look at it, and he felt that as long as his front shoulder was closed, he could get enough on it to hit a double in the left center field gap, and never, ever swung for a home run.
And then we saw that today when he hit that double on that changeup ball. He was behind in the count. He was kind of drifting out on it, but kept his hands back and just split the gap in right center. I wanted to ask you, Paul, about a couple things we were just talking about last half inning. Maybe about the disruption that Jonathan Papelbon caused when he went to the Nationals and what that did to their bullpen and subsequently to their team in terms of him displacing Drew Storen. There are some who would say the same thing kind of happened over here in this Marlins dugout, in that they fired Mike Redmond early in the season. I think they'd played 30 games and they were 10-20.
Well, it was right after Shelby Miller almost no-hit him.
Yes, same day. So the general manager comes down to be the manager. They didn't bring in another former manager, guy who was already in uniform. The GM comes down, and the story might lead you to believe that the players were like, really, are you kidding me? This guy's going to be our manager? I mean, where did he come from? So I'm asking you, is there any truth to that chemistry thing that people talk about all the time with respect to winning?
In my opinion, yes, there is, absolutely. And I'm not trying to make anybody look bad, as you are. But you're right. That's a conflict of interest, in my opinion. It's an unusual decision when you place yourself in there as a head coach. But the bigger thing for me was the players liked and respected Mike Redmond.
Simmons at short handles the hot smash from Mathis, who swung a hot bat today.
And you didn't see consistent moves that you questioned. I think as far as the Papelbon trade, yes, I feel it ups. You know, if it's that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I feel that if you bring somebody over and replace somebody who is doing a good job or someone that the team likes, then it causes some dissension, and then you have some off-the-field issues. When you go out the stretch before the game, you start to get clicks here and there, and I don't like that. I feel that if somebody is doing a good job with their approach and everybody likes them in the dugout or in that managing role, then you keep them there.
Yeah, it kind of goes to that old philosophy that I heard so many times about, until a guy fails, as a coach, he's really not going to seek you out or listen to anything you really have to say. But once he fails, he needs your help and he needs your counsel. And I think that the same thing applies to players with respect to their coaches, managers, and in this case, a guy in the closer role.
Well, big happenings might be happening for the Marlins in that regard as early as tomorrow. We'll talk about that as we continue in Atlanta today. is on the camera here at Turner Field, showing Homer the Brave the ropes.
Steve's been a big Homer fan for as long as I can remember.
And we're all fans of this. Our great clip of the game, a milestone for Hector Olivera today.
His first major league hit, his first hit as a Brave, played at 2 runs and gave the Braves a short-lived 3-2 lead. So congratulations to him on his first major league hit. Braves trailing 6-3 at this point.
And Kyle Barraclough is going to come in, and he'll face Olivera, Bethancourt, and Castro for Atlanta.
Barraclough faced 2 batters Monday night, struck both of them out. High 90s fastball, slider.
Former Cardinal came over in the trade for Steve Cishek. So Marlins head home. Multiple outlets are reporting that the Marlins are planning a big meeting tomorrow of their front office, coaching staff, scouting department. John Heyman of CBS Sports is reporting that it's unlikely that Dan Jennings will be back as the manager next year. He may be offered another position in the front office or become the GM again.
Which I think he wants to do.
Right. Whether he's allowed to do that or not remains to be seen. Several of their scouts, baseball people, are being either reassigned or let go even as we speak. But to your point about having confidence and trust in your coaching staff, your players, et cetera, it's a crazy situation down in Miami. And going back to what we said about Matt Williams, and he knows his team far better than we ever will. Same holds true for the Marlins. How in the world can you have any kind of organizational cohesion when you've had 6 managers since 2010? 6 of them.
Wow. Not much.
So if you don't bring Dan Jennings back as the GM, who's going to run your baseball operations department? Who's going to come back under that kind of turmoil and knowing that there's been that kind of turnover? If you're looking for a strong managerial presence in your dugout, who's going to want to walk into what has been a revolving door job for the last 5 years, even with a team that on paper is as talented as the one the Marlins purport to have? Don't know the answer to any of those questions.
Been an ongoing saga down there.
Yeah. But from the scouting department to the front office, there will be sweeping changes, if we are to believe what we're reading today. So that came from Clark Spencer, who wrote an article in the Miami Herald about that very subject earlier.
But there's always sweeping changes down there.
Yeah.
Whether they're sweeping changes by bringing in all these great players that they had for their first year in that new stadium, and then all of a sudden bailed on that and got rid of everybody. Those were sweeping changes.
Yep.
Even before this ownership group was in place, when they won the World Championship the next year, sweeping changes. They got rid of just about all of their good players.
Yep.
After they had certainly put on a real heavy duty push for season tickets for the world champion Marlins, and those players were gone. So it's one of those, stay tuned, folks, because right now their lineup is solid.
Right.
Once they get Stanton back, it's a solid lineup.
And if you have Fernandez at the top and he's healthy and ready to go and can make 30 some odd starts, that's a great place to start too. Line foul and out of play. It's still 2 balls, 2 strikes. So as we said, the Marlins head home, day off tomorrow. It appears it's going to be a busy day at Marlins Park. Then they'll welcome New York to town. Chance for the Marlins to spoil New York's unbelievably good season. And perhaps a glimpse of what could have been for the Fish. Barraclough strikes out Bethancourt. 1 man down here in the Atlanta 6th.
Going to Washington tonight for 4 games. It's pretty obvious, even though we don't know what the pitching matchups are going to be. It's obvious the Braves are going to see all the Washington starters with the exception of Scherzer, who's pitching tonight.
Right. unless Strasburg can't go, and then they'll figure that out. But we're going to see Zimmerman. We're going to see Gio Gonzalez. We're probably going to see Ross. In what order? I don't know.
And then maybe either Strasburg or Tanner Roark, who was the odd man out. Remember, he was a 15-game winner last year, and Roark couldn't make the starting rotation.
Couldn't make the rotation.
Daniel Castro down a strike, 0-1. Oliveira at first. And it's even. 1 ball, 1 strike.
I do know this. The National League East is loaded with pitching. Mets, Nationals, Miami, when they've got all their pieces in place. The Braves have pitching coming, but they've still got Shelby Miller and Julio Teheran as a 1-2. Anytime you have to face those guys, it's going to be a dogfight. So I said that to say this: you better get a lineup.
Yeah.
You better get some bats. You better get some guys who can put the ball in play to contend with that type of pitching.
Well, that's why the acquisition of Oliveira is so important for Atlanta. They want to see what he can do in September and figure out how he fits in and where he fits in as the Atlanta third baseman. They paid a very heavy price to get him, and it wasn't just in terms of talent and dollars with the Dodgers. Remember, they tried to get him before LA got him, and that was without seeing him play other than international competitions on tape. There were no games for Oliveira to play. But it was the Dodgers who won the bidding war and then traded him to the Braves in that blockbuster deal that sent Alex Wood and Jim Johnson and Avalon and Jose Peraza out west. One ball, 2 strikes. 6-3 Miami in the 6th. And pulled to third. Great play, Prado. Second one, first 2. What a double play. As pretty a double play as you'll ever see.
Doesn't get prettier than that. And poor Daniel Castro, great at bat. He turns on the ball, hits it like a bullet. And there's Martin.
Around the horn and out of luck is Atlanta. We go to the 7th. State champs, number 16 Georgia Tech hosting Alcorn State. Coverage starts at 7 Eastern with our ACC Kickoff 2015 pregame show live from Bobby Dodd Stadium. It's the Georgia Tech home opener tomorrow at 7 Eastern on Fox Sports South and streaming on foxsports.go. Thursday at 7 Eastern on Fox Sports South and streaming on Fox Sports Go.
Our gal Jen Hildreth will be working that game as well. So after getting hit with that
line drive. No, I'm sorry, the overthrow at Chicago, getting hit in the shins. I want her to be aware of those in sweeps, you know, be alive to any of those guys running out of bounds, be heads up.
I'm more worried about the Brady bunch. Remember when Doug threw the football and hit Marsha right in the nose? That's the one I'm worried about.
Okay.
The quarterback, the star quarterback that Marsha was in love with, threw the football, hit her in the nose. So watch out for that too, Jen. As
scary times.
D. Gordon leads off the 7th. Hey, want to wish our pal Brian Giffen good luck too. He's getting ready to start something very exciting. Brian Giffen, grandma, affectionately known to 2 people, is the radio voice of Kennesaw State. And Brian and the Owls will be kicking off their football schedule on Thursday. Swing and a miss.
Good slider.
D. Gordon's retired and is 1 for 4 so far today. Brian will do a great job. That's a wonderful opportunity for him, and we wish him and Kennesaw State all the luck in the world.
Yeah, Brian was the voice of Butler College, and with Kennesaw State cranking up their program tomorrow night, we wish them all the best, and certainly Brian too.
1 out for Yelich. 2 more hits for him today. No sign of any knee problems for him in this series. Fly ball tailing away from Maben. He's unbelievable. Yelich just glides into second base. He's got a 3-hit day, and that's his 18th double.
I know that I probably wear this out with a lot of people, but hands inside the baseball. Pitch running away from him, and he didn't get too far out in front of it. Stayed back, drove it the other way with authority. That's why I said last night, I think this guy's got a batting title in his future somewhere. Uses the whole field, good speed.
He's a first-round pick. The Marlins stole him with the 23rd pick in 2010. Down the right field line by Prado's had a big day today.
And Martin's still trying to go to right field. Just as he was when he hit that ball to deep right on that fly ball that was ruled an error off the glove of Swisher. Jackson with a long look in at Rob Drake after that pitch.
He's not the first and won't be the last. The 2010 draft was a pretty doggone good draft, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it was. Good year.
Bryce Harper first. Manny Machado 3rd. Matt Harvey 7th. Grandal 12th. Chris Sale 13th. And a line drive over short. That's in for a hit. Yelich is going to get waved around. He's going to score as Martin Prado celebrates a 2 RBI homecoming in Atlanta.
So he's trying to go the other way, He's trying to get that runner over to third. Then you decide to bust him with a high fastball. That is his wheelhouse. High fastballs.
So it's 7-3 Marlins. Last time the Marlins swept a 3-game series here in Atlanta was April of 2009. They've got a 4-run lead in the top of the 7th.
We're going back into the archives a lot lately.
Unfortunately, we are. This will be the 10th time the Braves get swept unless they come back in their last 3 at bats. That's in for a strike. Marlins are an astounding 8 for 19 with runners in scoring position in the series. And they have a very good chance to leave town in 3rd place. Little roller right side by Bohr. Castro to second for one, to throw to first in time. The Braves turn the double play.
How about those 2 double plays in the last 2 half innings?
Very slick. Didn't think they had a chance to get that one on a slow roller. But Bohr is retired, so is Miami, and it's time for the 7th inning stretch. It's close enough. The Devil went down to Georgia in between innings here.
Still a great turn. Good play by Daniel just to decide to even go to second base and get the lead runner. And then, you know, Andrelton's never going to give up on a chance at a double play.
Look at Prado looking over his shoulder, and look at the difficulty of that throw.
Having to make it flat-footed for Andrelton, too. Daniel's from Guaymas, Mexico. Beautiful coastal town off the mainland of Mexico. It's a gorgeous place. Sure, he'll be playing some winter ball again. He played in the Mexican Summer League for a couple of years.
Ryan Lavarnway is going to pinch hit in the 7th, and he'll face former Brave Mike Dunn.
60th appearance for Mike. Big strikeout numbers. High ERA for him this year, though. Not the type year he had. Not as good as last season. Mid-90s with a slider.
And the piston didn't get it. Big swing and a miss. Strike one for Ryan. Brewers have 3 catchers on their roster with Bethancourt, Lavarnway, and A.J. Pierzynski. That's inside, even count. 1 ball, 1 strike. Underway in Chicago. Reds 1, Cubs nothing. Wonder if Joey Votto hit another homer. Reds have given the Cubs all kinds of trouble this year. Chicago beat them last night on a Kyle Schwarber home run.
Yeah, 3-run shot. Put him ahead late. I mean, I know everybody's kind of handing the rookie of the year to Chris Bryant, but this game he can step in and steal it from him. Schwarber.
13 homers in 48 games for Schwarber. Fernando Rodney, remember they got him a week ago, picked up his first win in relief for Chicago. Broken bat, line out to third, one away. Lavarnway's retired. Braves fans, hope you'll join us for the remaining weekends here at Turner Field. We have the Mets, Phillies, and Cardinals in town. Friday night is fireworks night. Kids run the bases on Sunday. Weekends are a great time to catch up with friends and family and see these young Braves. Go to Braves.com/tickets today and plan your visit to Turner Field. Maven, the batter, he's got an infield hit, a run scored, and he has struck out twice. That third inning hit snapped an 0 for 19 for him. Turns on that ball, rips it foul. Had a little bit of a scare when Maven legged out that infield hit.
Kind of stumbled coming out of the box.
And 2. Other games of importance later on tonight. Let's start in the American League. Minnesota, they're hanging in there, aren't they? They're a game out for the second wild card. They're 41-25 at home, where they host the White Sox tonight. And Maven is down on strikes. Their young phenom is Miguel Sano. I think that's how you say his last name.
Yes, it is.
He's having a Kyle Schwarber-like year. He's hit 14 homers in 50 games.
Yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot about him until last couple of weeks. He DHs, plays in some couple of different positions.
Twins a game behind Texas, 2.5 games ahead of the Angels in the hunt for the second wild card.
That would be a great story.
Sure would. How about a Minnesota-Houston ALCS? 1 ball, no strikes for Andrelton with 2 outs. And a bouncing ball right side. D. Gordon's got it. Easy play and done. Breezes through the 7th. We go to the 8th. All Marlins 7-3. It's for the Marlins. 3 runs, 4 hits for the Braves as we've completed 7 in Atlanta. Let's take a look at today's Toyota key play.
Hanging changeup.
Marcell Ozuna. We just talked about what a good fastball hitter he is. Just ripped that changeup. And that broke the tie.
Braves will go back into their bullpen. Brandon Kniff is on to pitch. Remember the season he got off to for the Braves this year? I mean, he was a real reliable part of the bullpen for Freddie Gonzalez in the first couple of months.
Set an Atlanta record for the most hitless outings to begin his career, which was 7. Allowed his first hit to a right-handed batter on May 20th, and that snapped a hitless streak against right-handers at 30 at-bats. And according to Stats Inc., it was the longest such hitless at-bat streak against right-handed batters for a Braves pitcher to start his career since 1974.
Ground ball sharply hit on the first pitch. Ozuna is out number 1. So he gets the right-hander, and Joe, Paul, now he's got to face a future Hall of Famer in Ichiro Suzuki.
We're going to show that double he hit earlier, Paul. And with regard to that right front shoulder, behind in the count. And it was tucked for a long time.
We talked earlier about him staying close, but what I hated, Joe, is even when he hit a weak ground ball to the left side or right, he was halfway out of the box on contact. Couple that with speed, and I think that's why you see that high average. And he was one of the rare guys that I could make a quality pitch to down and away, even fool him with a changeup. He drift forward, so I fooled him. But because he keeps that front shoulder closed and is so good at going with the ball and not trying to pull everything, he was often rewarded with a double when in fact I made my pitch.
But it's like I said earlier about D. Gordon, Paul. He may not look that strong, but if you keep that front shoulder closed, teams are going to start pitching you in, so you've still got to be able to handle that pitch inside, and he does with ease.
I agree, and even if you fight it off and live to see another day, it's hard for me to pitch inside and make my pitch over and over and over again. Sometimes, like he did right there, he just drifted forward and he took that pitch. Sometimes a good take, a foul off when I make my pitch is very frustrating, and it's only a matter of time before I make a mistake. And that's when he's definitely going to hit it hard when you leave that one over the middle.
Well, we're lucky when we get to the ballpark. For example, when Ichiro was in Seattle. You don't think this man's strong? Watch this man take batting practice at Safeco Field, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he did him 20, 30 rows up in that gigantic ballpark with ease.
That's all he did.
I mean, Lou Piniella tells the story all the time. He just flipped the ball to the opposite field in spring training when Lou was with the Mariners. And he said, "Show me you can pull the ball once, son." Well, he hit a home run about 9 miles in Arizona, rounded third, shrugged his shoulders, and looked at Lou. And Piniella said, "Do whatever the heck you want." I mean, he was that good. Castro to his right, and no chance to get Ichiro, who legs out an infield hit that ball in a perfect spot. So he's got 2 more hits.
And with his speed, Paul, if he just hits the ball on the ground, he's got a chance, doesn't he?
That's it, his speed, and he's out of the box quickly. Doesn't try to do too much. You're right, I have seen him take BP. It's absolutely incredible, and I wonder if he thought to himself, you know, I can hit 15 to 20 home runs and hit 280, or I can hit 350 and hit 5 to 10, and he figured, well, I will add more value. And unusual that he was a right fielder, had such a good arm that he was out in right field. Wasn't a power guy, but gosh, 340 to 372 in his prime, that's hard to pass up.
Yeah, I'm going to say that the Mariners could go somewhere else to find a guy to hit 280 and hit 15 homers. They can't find many guys to hit 350 or better.
I was going to say, right now Ichiro might hit cleanup for him with his 6 or 7 homers. With all due respect in Seattle. 1 ball, no strikes to Rojas, who took over for Echeverria, who left with a hamstring issue.
Guys, it's similar to me of the pitcher that can throw 98, but he relaxes and hits his spot at 92, 93, and is much more effective. I guess it would be that same thing in Joe. There's something to cutting down on your swing a little bit. I mean, you got to kind of know yourself. If you hit 30 home runs, I assume you'd want to do that. But, you know, it seems to be if a guy takes an easy approach and swings at 80-90%, it's better. It's easier to hit the sweet spot with the bat.
That's what the point I was trying to make earlier, Paul, and I probably didn't do a very good job of it, but it's almost like on that off-speed pitch, he slows his swing down to match the pitch almost. And the ball still comes off his bat.
Tries easier.
Yeah.
And on his way to the Hall of Fame. I sure hope Ichiro gets a ton of hits the rest of the way. I hope he gets a chance to. I would almost guarantee he's going to get a chance to play somewhere next year.
Sure thing. Tell you what, if they had, among active players, if they had a foot race for guys 40 and over, my money's on him.
He's 2 steals away from 500. Which is something that isn't talked about a lot.
Well, he's in his 40s, and we just watched him running down the first base line. We saw him tag at third and score. Went from first to third on a hit earlier also. His legs are still working just fine. He's really a marvel.
Two and two for Rojas, and Kniff gets a pop fly foul out of play, right side.
And let's face it, if the Marlins didn't have D. Gordon, he'd probably be leading off.
Good point. Low, full count. Dodgers and Giants play later tonight. That's another huge game for San Francisco. They lost to Greinke last night. 2-1 was the final. Today it's Leake and Kershaw. And a line drive to the right side. Rojas dumps it in. Ichiro never stopped running. And the Marlins at first and third of the Braves an awful lot today. That's their 13th hit.
Game in LA you're talking about, that's on September 2nd. If there's such thing as a must win, it is a must win for San Francisco.
Yeah, they're 5.5 back now, and the Dodgers have caught fire after Clayton Kershaw said, hey, we need to panic. They've won 7 of 8. So here's Mathis. He's hit the ball hard 3 times today. Good day for him. He had 4 RBIs for the entire season. Remember, he missed a lot of time with a broken hand. He has 2 RBIs today. Oh, and 2. Mathis played with the Angels and Toronto. This is his 3rd season in a Marlins uniform. One ball, 2 strikes. Mathis, another native Floridian from Marianna, Florida.
Where's that?
I think that's in the Panhandle. That one got away, but no advance from third. Ichiro plays it safe. Rojas to second on a wild pitch.
Probably a very good read by Suzuki. The way that ball came off the back wall.
Infield in, 2 balls, 2 strikes. Mathis originally a draft choice of the Angels. And does Tom Kochman sign every single one of their players?
I believe that's a rule.
Every time we go through the book, you see, well, originally signed by Angel scout Tom Kochman, Casey's dad. Oh, Casey's doing well. And a swing and a miss. Mathis is down on strikes.
It's a better breaking ball from Kenneth when he took a little something off of it, didn't overthrow it. Brandon put up good numbers when he would come in with inherited runners. He only allowed 2 of 22 inherited runners to score before he got hurt. Went on the disabled list with a right groin strain, and when he came back from the DL was optioned back to Gwinnett, where he got hurt again and had to go on the DL.
This is Casey McGee. And a strike. McGee really resurrected his career with the Marlins. Went to Japan, you might recall, after some good years with the Milwaukee Brewers. Things didn't work out well for him in San Francisco. Matt Duffy took over at third base, and the story about McGee was he was as professional as a professional player can be. When he got the news that Duffy was going to take over, be the starting third baseman, and he was out of the Giants' plans, he took Duffy into a room and said, "Hey, congratulations. This is what you need to do." I mean, he really handled that bitter pill like a big leaguer. And I'm sure Duffy will never forget it.
You know he won't. That'll be something he hands down. And he's a candidate for Rookie of the Year and continues to play well. He's about the only guy right now in San Francisco's lineup that is still swinging the bat.
And healthy. Crawford was out last night. Still without Pence. Bouncy ball to second. Castro gives ground, and the throw to first is in time. The Marlins got a couple of hits but leave a pair stranded, and we head to the home eighth. See get away from the Braves, not just with his bat but with his glove. How about this indescribably good play presented by Zaxby's?
Great reactions first of all, and then the ability to get to his feet and make an accurate throw to D. Gordon, who slaps him on the back. Heck of a play.
This is Brian Morris. He's done good work out of the bullpen for Miami. And he's their fourth pitcher of the day. Conley started, gave up 3 runs in 5 innings. He's in line for the win. Barraclough faced 3 hitters in the 6th, gave up a walk, but got that double play. Dunn got the Braves 3 up, 3 down in the 7th. And now it's Morris versus Freddie Freeman.
Like everybody else in baseball, Morris throws 93 to 96 with a slider. Who do you think that first guy will be to get called up that throws 82 to 84?
Some teams will tell you they're already here. But that's truly how the game has changed so dramatically in the last 20 years. Clubs used to have one, maybe two guys like that if they were really stacked in the pen. Now it's all power all the time. Get your starter out. Some say after the second and a half or third time through the lineup, and then turn it over to the fresh arms for the final couple of innings. But I would think if Bobby Cox's oft-stated mantra is true that hitters can time a jet, a guy like that would be a real valuable guy in a bullpen. Change the look for the hitters. Everybody's throwing 95. You got somebody with movement, less velocity. As that one chased Freddie Freeman, and he's hit by a pitch. He's at first with nobody out.
Well, there's an unofficial gray area. I've got him on the foot. An unofficial gray area. You either throw 82 or less or 90 and above. Stay out of that 82 to 89 range.
Yeah,
that's right in the wheelhouse.
Danger, danger, Will Robinson.
Yes.
Right. Here's Adonis. Bouncy ball to second on the first pitch. There's one, and there's dos. Base is empty in the 8th inning. 2 outs. Follow the Braves wherever you are with MLB.com at Bat, the #1 app for live baseball. At Bat is up to the moment at any moment with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, StatCast, and more. Get MLB.com at Bat for your smartphone or your tablet. Hope for a step forward today for Williams Perez. Got out of the first inning without a run. A leadoff walk in the second. 2 came across there. And then it all fell apart for him in the 5th inning. An 0-2 pitch turned into a 2-run homer for Marcell Ozuna. And Williams Perez allowed 6 runs in 5 innings. Since coming off the DL, Perez has pitched 36 innings and has allowed 40 earned runs. Is were all of them earned? So maybe let me correct that. It's 38 earned runs. Only 2 of those 3 were earned in that inning. So 38 earned runs in 36 innings. Swisher with a dribbler. Gordon spears and throws off target. Bohr tried to stretch out and save it, but couldn't keep his foot on the bag. That would have been a spectacular play.
Great range by D. Gordon, and he knew he had to hurry, so when he got to his feet, he just turned and fired. He really couldn't get his sights set on the bag. This was kind of a blind throw with his arm action already starting.
There's that man again. Can't resist getting dirty, can he?
Well, he did a smart thing here. He turtled. He got both hands in to keep getting stepped on.
Hector Oliveira is the batter. And a bouncing ball short. The flip to second in time, so John Holland will have his hands full with the uniform of Justin Bohr.
Oh no, he'll just throw that in the bin and say, you guys go home and wash it.
Typical John. 7-3, we go to the ninth. Fans fired up here at Turner Field. Always fun to see them. We'll see them next week when we get back from our trip to Washington and Philly. As we promised you earlier today, we've selected the Data Strong fan photo of the game. Tweet your strongest fan photo to #South Data Strong Fan for a chance to be featured in an upcoming broadcast. That's brought to you by T-Mobile.
Thank you, Nancy Hercrab. Has your husband been in that picture anywhere?
It's a very, very strong photo. Nicely done. As Arodys Vizcaino is on to save the all-important 8th run.
Well, Arodys has pitched great. He really has. Yeah. It's just been trying to get him a lead somehow, some way. And the Braves have not been able to do that. 20 of his 21 appearances since he came back from his suspension have been scoreless. And he's got a 14 2/3 inning scoreless streak working right now.
So he's serving an apprenticeship in the 9th inning role for Atlanta. And if he can do it, that's one less item off the checklist for the Braves to worry about in what will, I'm sure, be a very busy offseason between the 2015 and 16 seasons. He's got the top of the order for the Fish, starting with D. Gordon, and he was very late, overmatched at 98 miles an hour. And that's what's made the difference for Vizcaino. He doesn't throw 100 with no idea where it's going. He's throwing it at 98 with command.
Yes, he is. He's been very good that way. 4 walks in his last 10 outings, but never more than 1 in any of them.
See if the Braves can get Yelich out. 3 more hits for him. Yelich started the day at 281. He's added 5 points to that mark. He's at 286. Remember, there's a month left. And his and Brett Butler's goal, get him to 300. Swings it like this, you like his chances. But he's got a tough assignment coming up. The Marlins have to handle the New York Mets pitching staff starting Friday night.
I'm watching Daniel Garcia out at second base, and I like watching these guys periodically because Daniel is like that guy in the U.S. Open tennis tournament right now who's receiving serve from the guy who serves the fastest. He's been over in his fielding position, but he's got his feet moving too, ready to go one way or the other.
That's fouled off Yelich's foot. 2 balls, 2 strikes. We will see the Marlins one more time. It'll be September 25th, 26th, and 27th. Our final stop on the road in regular season play.
Yeah, day off down there before that series coming from New York.
Sharply hit, and Yelich has a 4-hit day. And he's streaking for second. The throw there is going to be late. He was thinking 2 out of the box. Look out, Yelich is on a roll.
Yeah, and I think that may have ticked off the glove of Oliveira to slow it down just enough to give him time to get to second. Can't be sure of that, but that's what it looked like to me. Nice ball away. Took it that way. Some room that way. No way he got to that. Adonis got to it quickly and got it in as fast as he could.
Second 4-hit game for Yelich. How about this stat? The Marlins have had a runner in scoring position going back to Joe's Ford Keys. No runs in the first inning. Well, Risp in the second, third, fourth, fifth, 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. 14 Miami hits.
4 for 9 with runners in scoring position.
Martine's benefited from that. He's got 2 RBIs today. And he's not going to drive in a man swinging like that. That was a filthy pitch. 87 miles an hour, a sweeping slider following a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, and 2 are out.
Yeah, Martine had trouble. Those hip pockets again. They were already kind of vacating the premises.
Is that the old foot in the bucket? Just a touch?
That was somebody pulling on you from the dugout, trying to keep you from leaning out there.
Can't say that I blame him. Well, this will be a fun matchup. Bohr likes the fastball. Rhodey's has a good one. Braves move Garcia nearer the line and left as the first one misses low. 1 ball, no strikes. Matt Whistler gets the ball for the Braves in Washington tomorrow. We'll get to D.C. well ahead of the Nats. They play the Cardinals later tonight. How about that pitch?
That's great. 85 miles an hour when he's already got that back bat waggle and wind up for his swing for 98.
Ground ball right side. Freeman's got it. Vizcaino to the bag, and he works around the Yelich double. Christian Yelich, a 4-hit game. It's up to the Braves in the 9th inning, down 4, 7-3 now. And snap their 7-game losing streak. Eiichiro Suzuki is our trivia question, brought to you by AT Uverse. His career batting average is .315, second among active players. Who's got the highest?
Okay. The only other guy I could think of was Matt Holliday, but I don't know if he's got that many at bats. So I'm going to stick with Miguel Cabrera.
I think you're right. I'm going to piggyback with you. Miguel Cabrera, former Marlin. And it is Miguel Cabrera. Good job, Joe.
I don't think there was a whole lot of guys to pick from, were there?
No, not when you're hitting .315 for a long career like Ichiro's had. I mean, that's...
Todd Helton were still around. I might have thrown him in there.
That's a good call.
A.J. Ramos is their closer. He's back out there today despite the 4-run lead. Last night he came in a non-save situation. Or excuse me, 2 days ago. But that was because he was already up and the Marlins added to their lead in the 9th. Today I'm not sure why he's in there with a 4-run lead, but here he is.
Day off tomorrow, perhaps?
Yeah, could be. And the fact that they want 3rd place.
And if they get 3 more outs, that's exactly where they'll be. There's some talk, too, that in the offseason, not only will the Marlins look for a top-of-the-rotation type starter, they might be looking at an elite closer. As this one is popped up by Bethancourt. Ramos calls everybody off, says he's got it, and he does. There's out number one. Imagine a Craig Kimbrell and a Aroldis Chapman at the end of the line for the Marlins, and Ramos is an 8th inning guy. That'd be a pretty salty 1-2 punch in the late innings.
Laser Baker gave us another option on that trivia question. Joe Mauer is at 314.
No, Joe Mauer doesn't get talked about hardly at all because he doesn't hit home runs anymore.
And he's not catching anymore.
Right. DH first baseman for the Twins as Castro pops one out of play. But still an outstanding average hitter, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes. I think Daniels due a base hit here. Got robbed by Prado his last time up. He's played excellent defense today. I just think he deserves a hit.
I like watching him play.
I do too.
No balls and a strike. Goes back to what you and I have talked about a lot too. The great work that Brian Snitker has done with the Gwinnett team. Castro spent most of the season there. He spent some time at Mississippi too. But the Brave staff, developmental staff at the AA and AAA levels, really has done terrific work getting these guys ready for the numerous opportunities that have come their way with the big league club. So tip of the cap to those guys. Hopefully Brian and the gang at Gwinnett can have a good series. They start a 4-game set with Norfolk. They're 4 games behind them for first place. Norfolk leads the division, the Southern Division of the International League. Jake Brigham's going to pitch in game 2 of a double header later on today. Don't know who game 1 starter is going to be. Alex Smith has had an excellent year. He leads the G Braves with 28 stolen bases.
That's after at least 20, I think, at AA.
Mississippi, Greg Ross, 6 innings of 1-run baseball. He's surrendered 2 or fewer in 10 of his last 11 starts. That's for the Mississippi Braves. Lucas Sims pitches tonight as Castro is down on strikes and 2 are out. Carolina, Dustin Peterson knocked in a couple of runs with another 2 for 4 night. Peterson has 60 RBIs for the Carolina club. Ozzie Albies a .310 average for Rome. Danville wrapped up their season with a 34-34 record. Austin Riley ended his Danville campaign with a .351 average, hit 5 homers and 19 RBIs.
Hit 5 homers at Danville.
5 at Danville. He had 7 and 21 with the Gulf Coast ball club.
Yeah.
And that is a young man, the 41st overall pick that many in baseball say the Braves absolutely stole in the draft. So we will keep an eye on his progress closely next year. As Jace Peterson, the final hope for Atlanta. Jace got the day off today.
Almost.
Good point. Two balls, 1 strike. And fouled back. It's now 2-2. Marlins have held the Braves to 18 hits in this series over 3 games. And 4 runs. Peterson a walk. Wow, thank you very much. Ramos tried to get him on that inner half of the plate, which has been problematic for Jace this year. But he missed badly with his last 2 pitches, and the Braves aren't dead yet. Here's Maven. Most of the campers have begun to make their way to the exits. Well, the school kids, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it'll make it a long line of yellow buses going north and south, east and west.
Because as we all know, all roads depart Turner Field. On this gorgeous afternoon, September 2nd, where the Marlins lead 7-3 in Game 3. Out of play, even count. It's headed for Tommy Hutton. And out of play.
That was fun last night. I hope fans that saw that enjoyed the interplay between the 4 of us, the 2 Marlins broadcasters, and Chip and I. We had a good time.
Rich and Tommy are really good guys. That's what made it fun. Maybe we can do that again and maybe have some longer innings so that we can talk a little more substantively about what's going on with their club and our club. But I'm with you. I hope the fans enjoyed it. They sure have enjoyed their trip to Atlanta. They're about to sweep the Braves for the first time here in a 3-game series in 6 years. And as soon as this one's caught by Ichiro, that's exactly Atlanta's fate. There's the ball game. Marlins 7, Atlanta 3, a 3-game sweep. Braves swept for a 10th time this year. The Marlins hold the Braves to 4 runs and 18 hits in the 3-game visit to Atlanta. Big day today for Christian Yelich.